The deadliest waters on Earth, Drake Passage. Only two places on Earth can make experienced sea captains alter their routes or abandon ship. While the Bermuda Triangle remains largely mythical, the Drake Passage is a 600-mile reality where 30-foot waves are considered calm. As one veteran captain remarked, "It's where the ocean shows who's really in charge." This notorious stretch between South America and Antarctica has terrified sailors for 5 centuries. Captain James Cook called it the most desolate place on Earth. Even with today's advanced vessels and technology, the passage continues to claim ships. What creates this maritime nightmare? The answer combines geography, physics, and global climate patterns that we're about to explore. The modern crisis. Research vessel caught in storm. The RRS Sir David Attenborough pitches violently as it battles through the notorious Drake Passage in January 2024. The ship's communication system crackles to life. Research vessel Sir David Attenborough requesting weather update. Current position southeast Drake Passage en route to Weddell Sea. The response comes through broken and distorted. All vessels in Drake Passage, severe storm warning. Wind speeds expected to reach hurricane force within next 6 hours. On board, Dr. Karen Haywood and her team of oceanographers had set out from Punta Arenas just 24 hours earlier on what should have been a routine climate research expedition. Their mission: to collect critical data on changing ocean temperatures and current patterns. Instead, they now find themselves at the mercy of one of the most volatile waterways on the planet. "We were monitoring the weather systems, of course," Haywood would later recall, "but the speed with which conditions deteriorated caught even our experienced captain off guard. The morning had begun with manageable swells. By midday, the ship's meteorologist delivered the news no one wanted to hear. A massive low-pressure system was intensifying directly in their path, far faster than forecast models had predicted. What had appeared as a navigable weather window had slammed shut with alarming speed. Within hours, wind speeds accelerate past 55 miles per hour, pushing into hurricane-force territory. The sophisticated 400-foot vessel groans under the strain as wave heights climb toward 30 feet. The ship's captain's voice remains steady but urgent over the intercom. All scientific operations are suspended. Secure all equipment immediately. This is not a drill. In the primary research laboratory, specialized sampling equipment worth millions breaks free from its moorings despite careful preparation. A centrifuge tears loose from its bolted position, crashing across the floor. The shattering glass and acrid smell of spilled chemicals fill the air as two researchers narrowly avoid serious injury, diving clear as containers explode across the pitching deck. The angle of pitch was so severe at times that moving through the corridors became nearly impossible, remembers marine biologist Dr. Thomas Reynolds. "We were essentially climbing vertical walls one moment, then being thrown against the ceiling the next. The constant thunder of waves battering the hull creates a psychological torment matching the physical danger. In their cabins, crew members follow emergency protocols, strapping themselves into bunks while the ship's sophisticated stabilization systems strain beyond specifications. The cacophony of metallic groans and human gasps fills every compartment as unsecured objects become dangerous projectiles. On the bridge, Captain Malcolm Forster maintains composure while facing deteriorating conditions. Visibility drops to near zero as driving rain and sea spray envelope the vessel. As instrumental navigation fails, the captain's weathered hands grip the console, his experience becoming their most reliable guide. "Position uncertain," notes the captain's log at 2,100 hours. "Instrumental navigation compromised. Relying on inertial systems and experience." The first true moment of crisis arrives just after midnight. Through the darkness looms a massive wave approaching from starboard, dramatically exceeding the already punishing sea state, the dreaded rogue wave phenomenon that has claimed countless vessels throughout maritime history. "Brace for impact." The warning barely leaves the first officer's lips before the wall of water strikes. The wave strikes with catastrophic force. One window cracks but holds, a testament to modern engineering. Seawater forces its way through seal points, cascading over sensitive navigational electronics. Sparks fly from a communications console as circuits short out. The ship momentarily loses power before backup systems engage, casting the bridge in an eerie emergency glow that illuminates the crew's tense faces. As dawn breaks, Captain Forster faces an impossible choice. The ship's position puts them near the midpoint of the Drake Passage, too far to turn back toward South America, yet still days from the relative shelter of Antarctic waters. Continuing forward means facing the worst of the storm head-on, while turning the massive vessel risks exposing their broadside to potentially capsizing waves. After studying the remaining meteorological data, he finally orders, "Adjust course. 10 degrees southeast. We'll attempt to skirt the system's core. The next 12 hours will determine everyone's fate." As communication becomes increasingly sporadic, one researcher is heard saying in footage later recovered, "If we don't make it through this, at least the data recorders will survive. Someone will learn something from our work, even if we don't make it back to tell them." What makes this passage so treacherous, even in our age of advanced maritime technology? The answer lies in a perfect confluence of factors, creating Earth's most consistently dangerous body of water. The Antarctic Circumpolar Current, our planet's most powerful ocean current, channels through this relatively narrow 600-mile strait. This massive flow transports more than 150 million cubic meters of water per second, over 100 times the combined flow of all the world's rivers. This current meets no land resistance elsewhere in its path around Antarctica, accelerating unchecked until it squeezes through the bottleneck between the Antarctic Peninsula and South America's Cape Horn. Racing waters encountering the dramatically rising seabed are forced upward, creating towering waves even in mild weather. Unimpeded global winds circle the Antarctic continent, gathering speed across thousands of miles of open ocean before concentrating through this same geographic channel. When storm systems form, they develop unhindered by land masses that would weaken them elsewhere on Earth. The 2010 incident involving the tourist vessel Clelia II demonstrates this vulnerability. Returning to Ushuaia, the ship encountered 30-foot waves with sustained 55 miles per hour winds. A wave striking the bridge broke a window, disabling communications and damaging one engine. Only through assistance from another vessel did the Clelia II reach port safely. The Drake Passage features depths averaging 11,000 feet, with areas plunging beyond 15,600 feet. These abyssal waters create complex underwater dynamics, contributing to surface chaos. The stark temperature difference between Antarctic waters and those from South America generates atmospheric instability, frequently spawning cyclonic storms with little warning. As for the Sir David Attenborough and its crew of scientists, their story becomes another chapter in the long history of human determination in the face of the Drake Passage's fury. The ship's advanced design, the crew's training, and perhaps some measure of fortune allow them to navigate through the worst of the storm system. Geographic perfect storm. Why here? Behind every wave that threatened the Sir David Attenborough's mission lies a hidden global machine. When satellite imagery reveals the Drake Passage from above, an alarming pattern emerges. The only place on Earth where the world's most powerful ocean current gets squeezed through a geographic funnel with nowhere to go but up. The Drake Passage sits at what oceanographers call a perfect convergence point, where the Atlantic, Pacific, and Southern Oceans collide. Here, three massive oceanic systems, each with different temperatures, salinities, and movement patterns, violently confront each other in a relatively narrow channel, like three powerful rivers forced through a single canyon. What makes the Drake Passage uniquely dangerous is this bottleneck effect, explains Dr. Elizabeth Thornton, senior oceanographer at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. Imagine taking the water from three massive oceans and forcing it through a geographic funnel just 600 miles wide. There's simply nowhere for all that energy to go except upward. The Antarctic Circumpolar Current, or ACC, is the primary engine driving this marine chaos. Moving approximately 150 million cubic meters of water every second, It dwarfs all other ocean currents on Earth. To put this in perspective, the ACC transports more than 150 times the combined flow of all the world's rivers. This massive volume of water circles Antarctica completely uninterrupted, except at the Drake Passage. When this enormous current reaches the Drake Passage, it encounters a geographic restriction unlike anywhere else on its circular journey. The distance between Cape Horn at South America's tip and the Antarctic Peninsula creates a bathymetric bottleneck, an underwater geographical feature that funnels the current into a concentrated stream. The underwater topography in the passage is just as important as what we see above the surface, Dr. Thornton continues. The average depth here is about 11,000 feet, but it's not a smooth basin. There are underwater ridges, plateaus, and canyons that the current must navigate. These submerged features create another layer of turbulence. As the ACC collides with the underwater landscape, it generates massive internal waves and turbulent mixing that propagate upward. Some areas of the passage plunge beyond 15,600 feet deep, creating dramatic underwater cliffs that further disrupt the current's flow. Temperature differences compound these geographic challenges. Thermal imaging reveals a dramatic gradient where Antarctic waters at approximately 28 degrees Fahrenheit minus 2.2 degrees Celsius collide with relative warmer South American waters reaching up to 50 degrees Fahrenheit 10 degrees Celsius. This temperature disparity creates fundamentally unstable water columns, similar to how cold and warm air masses create turbulence when they meet in the atmosphere. When you have cold, dense water meeting warmer water in such a turbulent environment, you create perfect conditions for storm intensification, explains Dr. Victor Chen, climate physicist at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. These temperature differentials effectively provide fuel for atmospheric disturbances, which is why storm systems can develop so rapidly here. The ACC's forced upwelling through this narrow channel, combined with the temperature differences, generates a permanently unstable atmospheric condition directly above the passage. Further intensifying these conditions is the absence of land masses to impede wind patterns. In the band of latitudes known as the Roaring Forties and Furious Fifties, global winds can accelerate uninterrupted around the entire planet before slamming into the Drake Passage. This is the only place on Earth where winds can accelerate uninterrupted around the entire globe, notes Dr. Chen. By the time these winds reach the Drake Passage, they've had thousands of miles to build energy and velocity. Then they encounter the unstable air created by the oceanic conditions below. The combination of these factors, compressed ocean currents, complex underwater topography, temperature differentials, and unimpeded global winds, creates what scientists call a perfect oceanographic storm. When these forces align, they generate the infamous waves that have terrified sailors for centuries. This upward force, combined with the surface wind energy, creates the towering wave patterns that can reach heights of 30 feet or more during storm conditions. Like water rushing through a garden hose when you partially block the opening, the ACC surges upward with increased pressure and energy as it's forced through the passage. The Drake Passage also serves as one of Earth's primary mixing zones, where deep water rises to the surface and surface water sinks to the depths. This vertical circulation distributes heat, nutrients, and dissolved gases throughout the world's oceans, making it critically important for global climate regulation. We often describe the ACC and the Drake Passage as Earth's ocean mixer, says Dr. Chen. This mixing helps regulate temperatures and nutrient distribution throughout all the world's oceans. The interaction between the ACC and the seabed creates additional turbulence through topographic steering. As the current navigates over and around underwater ridges and valleys, it generates additional internal waves and eddies that propagate upward, contributing to chaotic surface conditions. This dynamic environment explains why rogue waves, enormous, unpredictable swells, are particularly common in the Drake Passage. These waves form when multiple wave patterns temporarily align and combine their energy. Rogue waves aren't random accidents. They're the statistical inevitability of chaotic wave systems interacting, notes Dr. Chen. In the Drake Passage, you have so many different forces creating wave patterns that rogue wave formation becomes much more likely. Even with advanced ship design and sophisticated weather forecasting, these concentrated forces remain formidable. Modern vessels must contend with the same fundamental physical challenges that have threatened ships since the earliest days of exploration. What's humbling about the Drake Passage is that despite all our technological advances, we can't change the basic physics, Dr. Thornton reflects. We can build better ships and predict conditions more accurately, but we can't alter the fact that an enormous volume of water is being forced through a relatively narrow channel. Historical nightmare. Early explorers. While modern ships struggle against the Drake Passage's fury, they have the advantage of satellite imagery, advanced weather forecasting, and reinforced hulls. But imagine facing these same waters in nothing but a wooden sailing vessel with no modern technology to guide you. The Drake Passage has claimed over 800 ships and 20,000 sailors throughout history, a maritime graveyard created when sailors ventured blindly into one of Earth's most unforgiving environments. Historical records reveal the passage's true deadliness. During the Age of Sail, nearly 1 in 5 vessels that attempted to cross these waters vanished completely. Ships would enter the passage and simply disappear, leaving no wreckage, no survivors, and no clues to their fate. Families and shipping companies would wait months or years for word of their vessels, only to eventually accept that the Drake had claimed another victim. Spanish explorer Francisco de Haux encountered these treacherous waters in 1525. His expedition, sailing south from the Strait of Magellan, had no intention of discovering this deadly passage. The region's unpredictable winds seized his ship, dragging it southward into uncharted territory. Haux and his crew faced towering waves that threatened to shatter their wooden vessel with each impact. The Spanish would later call this terrifying stretch Mar de Haux, in recognition of his inadvertent discovery. The wooden ships of the 16th century proved woefully inadequate when confronted with the Drake Passage's might. Constructed primarily of oak and pine, these vessels lacked the structural reinforcements needed to withstand such conditions. Their hulls, suitable for calmer European waters, could not absorb the pounding of 50-foot waves. When struck broadside, their wooden frames would flex beyond capacity, causing seams to split and water to pour in rapidly. Sir Francis Drake's 1578 voyage further cemented the passage's reputation as a maritime nightmare. Drake's ship was violently blown off course during an attempted journey through the Strait of Magellan. This unplanned detour confirmed the existence of an open water route south of the continent, but at tremendous risk. The passage would eventually bear Drake's name, though he was neither the first to discover it nor the first to successfully navigate it. Dutch navigator Willem Schouten deliberately set out in 1616 to find an alternative route around South America. His documented journey through the passage came at a devastating cost. His expedition began with multiple vessels, but concluded with just one remaining ship and fewer than half his original crew. The others perished in the turbulent waters. Their bodies never recovered. Journal entries from surviving ships document the horrors faced by early mariners. One captain wrote, "The sky and sea merged into one dark mass. Waves higher than our mainmast crashed over our decks with such force that 3 men were swept overboard in an instant. We could do nothing but watch them disappear." Another described encountering massive ice floes. "The ice caught us between its jaws like a beast with its prey. The terrible cracking of our hull timbers sounded like the screams of the ship itself." The harrowing story of HMS Voyage in 1741 illustrates the passage's mercilessness. Part of a British naval expedition, the Voyage was completely unprepared for what awaited. When violent storms shattered her rudder, the ship became uncontrollable, eventually wrecking on a desolate island off Chile's coast. Of the original 160 crew members, only 36 would ultimately survive. The Voyage's survivors faced months of unimaginable hardship. With winter approaching and supplies dwindling, the stranded sailors split into factions. Some remained with the captain, while others took the ship's longboat and attempted to navigate back through the passage. Those who stayed behind faced starvation so severe that instances of cannibalism were reported. The mutineers who left constructed makeshift additions to their small boat, desperately trying to create a vessel capable of withstanding the Drake's punishment. A handful of mutineers eventually reached civilization after months at sea. Their accounts led to changes in British naval law regarding shipwrecks and command during disasters. The Voyage incident became so notorious that sailors would speak of it in hushed tones decades later, using it as the ultimate cautionary tale about the Drake Passage's deadly potential. The passage's reputation became so feared that captains would add thousands of miles to their journeys just to avoid it. Navigation charts from the 18th and 19th centuries reveal shipping routes that deliberately took the longer path around the Cape of Good Hope rather than risk the shorter Drake Passage route. This detour could add months to a voyage, yet captains considered it a reasonable price for survival. The absence of nearby land to break up the flow of water, one naval historian noted, combined with the powerful Antarctic Circumpolar Current, created conditions unlike anything experienced in the Northern Hemisphere. Ships faced not only the threat of capsizing, but also the constant danger of icebergs appearing suddenly through the fog, giving crews mere seconds to attempt evasive maneuvers. The introduction of steam power in the 19th century marked the first significant technological advancement against the passage's deadly conditions. Steam vessels could maintain headway against contrary winds and currents that would have left sailing ships helpless. This innovation reduced crossing times from weeks to days and provided captains with unprecedented maneuverability. Yet even with steam power, the Drake Passage remained lethally dangerous. Early steamships, with their paddle wheels and primitive engines, still suffered terribly. Engines would fail when water flooded boiler rooms, paddle wheels would break when smashed by waves, and hulls would crack under the constant battering. Before the Panama Canal opened in 1914, ships transporting goods between the Atlantic and Pacific had little choice but to brave these waters or take the much longer route around Africa. This economic pressure forced countless captains to risk the passage despite its well-documented dangers. For those who survived shipwrecks, their ordeal was often just beginning. The subantarctic islands offered little food or shelter. Survivors might spend years stranded, subsisting on seabirds, seal meat, and salvaged provisions. When these supplies ran out, many constructed crude boats from shipwreck remains, preferring to risk death at sea rather than face starvation. These improvised escape attempts rarely succeeded, contributing to the passage's grim legacy, a testament to both nature's power and humanity's determination to challenge it. Shackleton's Gamble, the most famous survival story. Throughout history, sailors have found themselves at the mercy of the Drake Passage, but none faced a more calculated, desperate gamble than Ernest Shackleton in 1914. While most maritime disaster stories begin with ships being caught unaware by the passage's fury, Shackleton's tale is remarkable because he deliberately chose to launch into these treacherous waters in a vessel that conventional wisdom deemed wholly inadequate, a modified lifeboat barely 22 feet long. The extraordinary saga began far from the Drake Passage itself. In 1914, Shackleton's expedition ship Endurance became hopelessly trapped in pack ice of the Weddell Sea before they even reached their intended destination. For months, the crew watched helplessly as their vessel was slowly crushed by the relentless pressure of the surrounding ice. This catastrophic beginning forced the 28-man crew to abandon ship and establish a precarious camp on the drifting ice floes. What followed was a prolonged battle against the elements as they drifted northward on the ice. When the deteriorating ice conditions threatened to split beneath their feet, Shackleton made the fateful decision that would either save his men or condemn them to death in one of Earth's most inhospitable environments. Their only chance for survival lay in reaching help, and the nearest potential rescue point was South Georgia Island, some 800 miles away across the infamous Drake Passage. Shackleton's solution was audacious in its desperation. He selected the James Caird, one of the ship's lifeboats, for a journey that would challenge even purpose-built vessels. This tiny 22-foot craft represented their only lifeline to civilization. The plan was unprecedented. No vessel so small had ever successfully crossed the Drake Passage, and experienced mariners considered the attempt virtual suicide. Shackleton modified the lifeboat by adding weight to the keel and constructing a makeshift partial deck from salvaged Endurance materials. critical adaptations that would prove essential for survival in the unforgiving waters ahead. When the James Caird launched into the Drake Passage, the 6-man crew selected for this desperate mission immediately confronted monstrous conditions. Towering 40-foot waves dwarfed their tiny craft, each swell threatening destruction. The constant crash of water against their fragile hull created a terrifying percussion, a death knell they fought with every ounce of strength. The men established a continuous rotation for bailing water, their hands raw and bleeding from the constant exposure to frigid seawater. The boat groaned and flexed beneath them, its wooden frame creaking with ominous tension against forces it was never designed to withstand. The physical toll was immense. Hurricane-force winds screamed around them like wounded animals, while freezing temperatures sent shooting pains through frostbitten fingers and toes. The men's clothes, perpetually soaked with icy spray, became frozen carapaces that chafed against skin already rubbed raw by salt. Their water supplies became contaminated with salt spray, each sip burning their cracked lips and parched throats, intensifying their dehydration. "We are the fools who could not see that this was impossible," Shackleton reportedly told his second-in-command Frank Worsley during a moment of stark honesty, before immediately returning to the steady, confident demeanor that sustained his men's spirits through the ordeal. Navigation presented another layer of difficulty. They relied solely on a sextant for celestial navigation, requiring clear skies in the perpetually cloudy Southern Ocean. The crew managed a single crucial sighting during a momentary clearing, providing their only position fix during the entire 16-day journey. Each mile represented another test of both the James Caird's structural integrity and the crew's will to survive. Hour by hour, they fought to keep their heading despite currents that constantly threatened to push them off course and into the open ocean, where certain death awaited. When they finally sighted South Georgia Island after more than 2 weeks at sea, dangerous currents and rocky shorelines forced them to crash onto the island's remote southern shore, opposite from the whaling stations where help waited. The James Caird, their faithful vessel, splintered against the rocks during landing, the sickening crunch of breaking timber marking the end of one journey and the beginning of another equally perilous challenge. Standing on the shore, looking at their destroyed lifeboat, Shackleton faced a crushing realization. After surviving the impossible sea crossing, they now stood on the wrong side of an unexplored, mountainous island with no hope of sailing further. "We've come this far," he told his exhausted companions. "We cannot fail now." This moment of determination, when failure seemed most certain, epitomizes Shackleton's extraordinary leadership under pressure. Shackleton selected 2 companions to accompany him across South Georgia's unexplored interior, a mountainous terrain challenging for experienced alpinists with proper equipment. The 3 men had no climbing gear and only makeshift crampons fashioned from screws taken from the James Caird. For 36 grueling hours, they traversed glaciers and scaled ice-covered peaks. When they staggered into the Stromness whaling station, their appearance was so transformed that station personnel initially couldn't recognize them. Without delay, Shackleton organized rescue missions for the remaining men. After several failed attempts hindered by ice conditions, Shackleton finally reached Elephant Island aboard a Chilean vessel. He found all 22 men alive, having survived for over 4 months in one of the world's most inhospitable environments. Against astronomical odds, all 28 members of the original expedition survived an ordeal stretching nearly 2 years. What elevates Shackleton's crossing above other maritime survival stories is the deliberate nature of his gamble. Unlike many Drake Passage disasters befalling well-equipped ships caught by surprise, Shackleton consciously launched a woefully inadequate vessel into waters renowned for destroying ships many times larger. Equally remarkable was Shackleton's psychological management throughout the ordeal. By maintaining routines, distributing rations with scrupulous fairness, and consistently projecting confidence in their ultimate rescue, he prevented the despair that might have undermined their collective will to survive. For scientific leadership, give me Scott. For swift and efficient travel, Amundsen. But when you are in a hopeless situation, when there seems no way out, get down on your knees and pray for Shackleton, wrote polar explorer Sir Raymond Priestley, a testament to leadership that transforms certain tragedy into triumph against impossible odds. A century after Shackleton's desperate crossing, The Drake Passage continues to challenge human survival, but now attracts scientists rather than just explorers. What makes the world's most dangerous waters so scientifically valuable that researchers willingly risk their lives? The passage has revealed itself to be much more than a maritime hazard. It's actually functioning as the planet's thermostat in ways we're only beginning to understand. Beneath these treacherous waters lies a remarkable truth. The Drake Passage serves as one of Earth's most significant carbon capture systems while simultaneously driving global ocean circulation. Modern research vessels brave these deadly conditions to understand processes critical to our planet's future. Their specialized equipment descends hundreds of meters into waters that once claimed countless lives, measuring planetary functions invisible to the naked eye. The data reveals something extraordinary. This relatively small stretch of ocean removes approximately 600 million tons of carbon from our atmosphere annually, equivalent to neutralizing the emissions from 130 million cars, or roughly 1/6 of all carbon humans release through our activities each year. This makes the Drake Passage one of Earth's most efficient natural climate regulators. Dr. Sarah Jensen, oceanographer with the British Antarctic Survey, explains with palpable admiration as her research vessel gently pitches. What happens in the Drake Passage doesn't stay in the Drake Passage. The unique convergence of conditions here creates a powerful carbon sink. The violent mixing of waters, the very thing that makes these seas so dangerous, also drives carbon captured by phytoplankton down into the deep ocean where it can be sequestered for centuries. The science behind this process works like a natural conveyor belt. The extreme conditions, high winds, irregular seabed topography, and powerful currents create perfect conditions for driving surface carbon into the depths. Microscopic phytoplankton near the surface absorb carbon dioxide during photosynthesis. When they die, the turbulent waters efficiently transport their carbon-rich remains thousands of meters down, effectively removing that carbon from the atmosphere for hundreds or even thousands of years, similar to dropping a letter into the deepest mailbox on Earth. It's nature's most efficient carbon capture system, continues Dr. Jensen, steadying herself against the lab bench as the ship rolls. If we could create something this effective artificially, we'd solve a significant portion of our climate crisis overnight. The scientific value extends beyond carbon sequestration. The Antarctic Circumpolar Current, ACC, flowing through these waters impacts global climate systems with enormous reach. With a flow rate approximately 100 times more powerful than the Amazon River, it serves as the primary mechanism connecting the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans. Dr. Michael Ramirez, climate scientist at the Antarctic Research Center, gestures toward monitoring equipment. This current is essentially Earth's great mixer. It distributes heat and nutrients throughout the world's oceans, affecting everything from fish populations off Japan to rainfall patterns in Europe. Without the ACC, our planet's climate would be unrecognizable. The research tools deployed represent oceanographic technology's cutting edge. Autonomous underwater vehicles with sophisticated sensors dive beneath the surface turbulence to measure conditions at depths where no human could safely go. These torpedo-shaped devices collect data on temperature, salinity, current velocity, and carbon dioxide levels, transmitting findings back to research vessels through acoustic signals. On the deck of the research vessel Polarstern, technicians prepare to deploy a deep-sea sediment corer. This specialized device plunges to the ocean floor to extract cylindrical samples of sediment accumulated over thousands of years. These cores provide a remarkable historical record of Earth's climate, with each layer representing a different time period, like reading tree rings but for ocean history. The sediment cores we've pulled from the Drake Passage floor are like reading Earth's diary, explains sedimentologist Dr. Elena Vasquez. We can see climate patterns stretching back millions of years. The chemical composition tells us about ocean temperatures, carbon dioxide levels, and even which organisms thrived at different points in history. This historical record provides crucial context for understanding our current climate crisis. Recent measurements show concerning changes in current strength and temperature. The powerful westerly winds driving the ACC are migrating southward toward Antarctica, altering circulation patterns that have remained relatively stable for thousands of years. Dr. Ramirez's expression grows serious as he reviews the latest data. What we're seeing now matches patterns that occurred during previous warming periods in Earth's history. But the rate of change is unprecedented. We're observing shifts that would typically take thousands of years happening in decades. The scientific community's focus has intensified because changes here could have cascading effects globally. The passage's relative narrowness makes it an ideal monitoring location. Scientists can effectively take the pulse of the entire Southern Ocean through this natural bottleneck. On the research vessel's bridge, Captain Elena Rodriguez scans the horizon where angry clouds gather. When I first started sailing these routes, we were just beginning to understand the passage's importance. Now, every expedition feels more urgent. The scientists work around the clock, even in the worst conditions. They know what's at stake. What's at stake extends beyond academic understanding. The Drake Passage functions as Earth's climate control system, with changes potentially affecting everything from European winters to Asian monsoons. The ACC helps drive the global ocean conveyor belt, a planetary-scale circulation distributing heat from the equator toward the poles, similar to how a home's heating system circulates warm air throughout different rooms. The research continues despite dangers. During one expedition, the research vessel James Cook deployed monitoring equipment while battling 25-foot waves. The sophisticated instruments were carefully lowered into churning waters. Hours later, when retrieved, they contained invaluable data about deep water mixing unavailable through any other means. There's simply no alternative to being here, explains Dr. Jensen, pointing to satellite imagery. Satellites can tell us about surface conditions, and computer models can make predictions, but nothing replaces direct measurement, especially in a system this crucial to our planet's functioning. As research vessels continue to push into these dangerous waters, they carry not just scientific equipment, but humanity's growing recognition that understanding Earth's systems ensures our own survival. The Drake Passage, once an obstacle to be avoided, has become a laboratory we cannot afford to ignore. Climate change, the shifting beast. The Drake Passage that Shackleton battled is not the same one sailors face today. The planet's most efficient natural climate regulator is transforming into something even more deadly. Time-lapse satellite imagery reveals a startling pattern of change across these waters that few researchers anticipated. The very forces that make the passage so scientifically valuable are intensifying in ways that challenge our understanding of Earth's most treacherous maritime environment. What satellites have captured over 5 decades tells a disturbing story. The white boundary of Antarctic sea ice contracts and expands in an annual rhythm, but with each passing decade, the maximum extent shrinks incrementally. Ocean current patterns visible through thermal imaging show subtle but significant shifts. The boundary where frigid Antarctic waters meet warmer northern currents has migrated, creating new zones of turbulence where none existed before. The Drake Passage is undergoing accelerated changes due to global warming, with the Antarctic Circumpolar Current at the epicenter of this transformation. The ACC, already established as the world's strongest ocean current, plays a critical role in our planet's climate regulation. It serves as a massive conveyor belt, redistributing heat around the globe and influencing weather patterns that affect billions of people who will never see these waters. What happens when Earth's circulatory system changes its rhythm? Scientists have identified a southward migration of the ACC as global temperatures rise. The powerful westerly winds driving the current are gradually shifting toward Antarctica, a fundamental restructuring of a system that has maintained relative stability for thousands of years. Dr. Catherine Branson, who has spent 20 years studying Southern Ocean dynamics, explains, the ACC functions as Earth's circulatory system. By shifting southward, we're essentially witnessing a change in the planet's heartbeat. This disrupts the engine that drives our global ocean circulation. The shifts extend beyond current positions. Research vessels deploying sophisticated monitoring equipment have documented a concerning increase in storm frequency and intensity within the Drake Passage. While storms have always defined these waters, their patterns are becoming more erratic and their strength more formidable. The unimpeded winds that circle the Antarctic continent are intensifying as atmospheric temperature gradients between the equator and poles become more pronounced. Advanced wave monitoring buoys scattered throughout the passage transmit real-time data that paints a troubling picture. Wave heights are trending upward, with storms generating more frequent extreme wave events than historical records indicate. Satellite radar imagery confirms what ship captains have reported anecdotally. The Drake Passage is becoming increasingly turbulent, with rogue waves appearing more frequently outside predicted storm systems. Beneath the surface, another concerning dynamic is at work. As Antarctic ice shelves melt at unprecedented rates, they release massive volumes of freshwater into the surrounding ocean, fundamentally changing the physical properties of the Southern Ocean. Dr. Marcus Chen, a physical oceanographer specializing in polar regions, explains, "The ACC relies on specific density gradients to maintain its structure and flow. When we introduce large volumes of meltwater, we're changing the physical composition of the water column. The current responds by becoming more unstable, creating new areas of turbulence and potentially weakening over time. The models project a potential vicious spiral effect. As warming causes ice to melt, the influx of freshwater disrupts current dynamics, which in turn alters heat distribution through the Southern Ocean, potentially accelerating further ice melt. The Drake Passage sits at the nexus of these complex feedback loops, experiencing the consequences directly. What makes this particularly treacherous is the paradoxical nature of these changes. Warming creates more chaotic and unpredictable conditions, precisely what sailors fear most when crossing the Drake Passage. Massive sections of Antarctic ice shelves calving into the ocean introduce icebergs, some the size of small cities, that drift northward into the passage, creating moving obstacles that follow erratic paths dictated by wind and water conditions. Captain Marcus Hendricks, who has crossed the Drake Passage more than 50 times, notes, 20 years ago, we had seasonal patterns you could rely on. Now, we're seeing severe storm systems appearing in what used to be relatively calm months. The predictability that experienced captains once relied on is disappearing. This unpredictability threatens the passage's function as Earth's climate control system. The Drake Passage and the broader Southern Ocean serve as a critical carbon sequestration zone, annually removing an estimated 600 million tons of carbon from the atmosphere. This natural carbon capture mechanism helps mitigate human-caused emissions, but its efficiency depends on stable oceanographic conditions. Dr. Elena Kostova, who studies carbon cycling in polar waters, warns, "We're conducting an unintentional experiment with Earth's most effective natural climate buffer. If the Drake Passage's ability to sequester carbon diminishes, the rate of atmospheric carbon dioxide increase could accelerate, creating yet another feedback loop." By mid-century, climate models indicate the Drake Passage could experience a 25% increase in extreme wave events compared to historical baselines. Storm systems once considered once-in-a-decade occurrences may become annual events, significantly narrowing the navigational window of relatively safer conditions. The implications extend far beyond maritime safety. Changes in the Drake Passage ripple throughout global oceanic and atmospheric systems. The Southern Ocean's ability to absorb heat from the atmosphere may diminish as circulation patterns shift, potentially accelerating warming in other regions. Weather systems influenced by Southern Ocean conditions, from rainfall patterns in South America to storm tracks affecting Australia, could undergo corresponding transformations. The technological response has been a dramatic expansion of monitoring capabilities. Autonomous underwater drones patrol beneath the surface, collecting data on current strength, water temperature, and salinity. Advanced weather buoys transmit real-time atmospheric conditions. Satellite monitoring provides continuous observation of wave heights and ice conditions. This sensor network generates terabytes of data for increasingly sophisticated predictive models that help vessels plan safer crossings. Yet even with these technological advantages, some aspects of the Drake Passage remain stubbornly unpredictable. The interaction between changing currents, shifting storm patterns, and increased iceberg activity creates complex emergent behaviors that challenge even the most advanced forecasting systems. For the scientific community, the Drake Passage has become an unintended laboratory for studying climate change impacts on ocean systems in real time. Research vessels continue to push into these waters despite increasing risks, recognizing that understanding these transformations is critical for predicting broader climate impacts and what they mean for our warming world. Wildlife against all odds. As our journey through the Drake Passage continues, beneath its churning surface lies a revelation that defies logic. The very environment that represents a nightmare for human travelers harbors an astounding secret. It teems with life forms that have mastered conditions lethal to our most sophisticated vessels. Where humans require reinforced ships and satellite technology merely to survive passage, entire species have transformed this hostile domain into their permanent home. The blue whale navigates these treacherous conditions with remarkable grace. As it emerges from the depths, water cascades off its enormous blue-gray body, its exhalation creating a misty column that hangs momentarily above the churning waves. These magnificent creatures, along with fin whales, humpbacks, and sperm whales, strategically time their migrations to coincide with specific current patterns in the Drake Passage. This calculated movement allows them to capitalize on the region's abundant resources while expending minimal energy against the powerful flows. What draws these ocean giants to such dangerous waters? The extraordinary biological productivity created by this maritime chaos. The collision of water masses generates massive upwellings of nutrients from the deep ocean floor, fueling explosive growth of marine life. Those dark patches visible from above are immense swarms of krill so densely packed they can be observed from space. These small, shrimp-like crustaceans form the foundation of the Antarctic food web, converting the abundant algae of the Southern Ocean into protein that supports virtually every larger species in the region. Dr. Miranda Feldman, marine ecologist with the International Southern Ocean Research Initiative, explains, "The krill concentrations in the Drake Passage represent one of Earth's most productive ecosystems. These tiny organisms support an intricate food web extending from fish to the largest creatures on our planet. Without healthy krill populations, the entire Antarctic marine ecosystem would collapse. While great whales capitalize on abundance, smaller marine mammals have evolved remarkable strategies to navigate this turbulent environment. Hourglass dolphins demonstrate extraordinary adaptability by riding enormous waves like surfers, using the tremendous energy that would destroy ships to propel themselves efficiently through water. Their distinctive black and white patterning helps pards maintain visual contact even in churning whitecaps and spray, crucial in waters where acoustic communication is disrupted by the constant roar of crashing waves. Above the surface, aerial masters have transformed the passage's most dangerous features into advantages. The wandering albatross, with its 11-foot wingspan, the largest of any living bird, has evolved a specialized shoulder lock, allowing it to soar indefinitely without muscular exertion. These birds can remain aloft for years, using fierce winds that terrorize sailors as personal highways. Giant petrels display similar mastery with a more opportunistic approach. They follow ships crossing the passage because the vessel's wakes churn up marine organisms from deeper waters, creating impromptu feeding opportunities. Dr. Feldman notes the intelligence behind albatross flight patterns. Wandering albatrosses don't fight the wind, they dance with it. They've developed cognitive mapping abilities that allow them to predict wind patterns and position themselves to exploit every shift and gust. Krill form the cornerstone of this remarkable ecosystem. A single blue whale can consume up to 4 tons of krill daily during feeding season, testament to the incredible biomass these waters support. These tiny crustaceans have developed specialized adaptations to the harsh conditions, including proteins that function as antifreeze and sophisticated synchronization behaviors that allow swarms to change direction as a unified mass, crucial for surviving in unpredictable currents. The region's apex predators have developed hunting techniques specifically calibrated to turbulent conditions. Leopard seals position themselves strategically where currents funnel prey into predictable channels. Unlike most marine predators that hunt through straight-line pursuit, these powerful hunters have developed a complex understanding of water movement. They anticipate how currents will carry fleeing animals and intercept them at precisely calculated points, a three-dimensional chess game played in constantly shifting conditions. In the passage's deeper regions, the mysterious colossal squid patrols where pressure and cold create conditions hostile to most life forms. Their massive eyes, the largest of any animal, detect the faintest bioluminescence, while highly developed pressure sensors provide constant awareness of subtle current changes. This sensory suite allows them to ambush prey disoriented by turbulent deep-water mixing zones. For the great whales, the Drake Passage represents both feeding ground and critical migration corridor. These massive mammals have developed an intricate understanding of the passage's oceanographic features, following underwater contours that create paths of less resistance through the strongest flows. Their migrations coincide precisely with krill bloom timing, demonstrating complex synchronization between biological cycles and oceanographic conditions. Satellite tracking studies reveal remarkable cognitive flexibility. Whales adjust their migration timing and routes based on changing current strengths and temperatures, essential for survival in this dynamic environment. The passage's inhabitants share a common theme, turning hostile conditions into opportunity. Fish species have evolved blood compositions that prevent freezing in sub-zero temperatures. Their cellular structures remain flexible in extreme cold, biological solutions to problems that would require advanced engineering for human survival. Even microbial communities show remarkable adaptations with metabolic pathways that function efficiently in cold temperatures where chemical reactions typically slow dramatically. These microorganisms form the base of alternative food webs not dependent on photosynthesis, critical in waters frequently darkened by storms. What makes the Drake Passage ecosystem truly extraordinary is how species across different evolutionary branches, from whales to birds to microscopic organisms, have independently developed solutions to the same harsh conditions. While humans struggle to cross these waters safely even with modern technology, countless species have transformed this hostile environment into a thriving home, demonstrating nature's remarkable capacity for adaptation in even the most challenging circumstances on our planet. Modern navigation. Technology versus nature. While evolution has crafted remarkable adaptations in the creatures of the Drake Passage, humans have taken a drastically different approach. On the bridge of modern vessels attempting this crossing, a technological battle unfolds, where sophisticated engineering meets a force that continues to defy prediction and control despite our most ambitious innovations. The command center of a modern research vessel navigating the Drake Passage resembles something between a spaceship and a military installation. Multiple radar screens display concentric rings of approaching weather systems. Satellite imagery reveals swirling cloud formations hundreds of miles away. Weather modeling systems process thousands of data points per second, calculating how wave patterns will evolve over the next 24 hours. This technology gives us a window into what's coming, explains Captain Stanislaus Dvorsine, gesturing toward a wall of screens displaying multicolored weather maps. But that window only opens so far in the Drake. His experienced eyes scan the instruments with practiced caution. "We don't gamble," he emphasizes, a philosophy that has guided his numerous crossings through these treacherous waters. This cautious approach reflects the reality that even with technological advances, humans remain humbled by the raw power of the Drake Passage. Modern weather routing algorithms represent a quantum leap from previous centuries' navigation tools. These systems simultaneously analyze wind speed, wave height, pressure systems, and historical patterns to recommend optimal crossing times and routes. What makes these algorithms valuable is their ability to incorporate real-time updates from multiple sources. Satellite imagery capturing developing weather systems, data from weather buoys throughout the Southern Ocean, historical weather patterns providing context for current readings. Yet the Drake's fundamental unpredictability means these technological marvels provide only partial protection. Weather patterns can transform within hours. Calm seas morphing into 30-knot winds and massive swells before a ship can change course. This volatility often forces vessels to wait days for suitable crossing conditions, regardless of their technological capabilities. The physical design of modern ships represents another front in humanity's response to these waters. In vessels like the Aurora Expedition's Greg Mortimer, the distinctive inverted X-bow slices through waves rather than pounding against them, reducing the violent pitching motion that characterizes traditional hull shapes in heavy seas. The XBOW changes how the ship interacts with the waves, explains a maritime engineer. Instead of punching through water like conventional bows, it cuts through more smoothly. The result is reduced impact, less vibration, and improved stability, critical factors when facing waves reaching 49 feet in height. Below the waterline, stabilization systems work continuously to counter the Drake's notorious roll. Underwater wings extend from the hull, automatically adjusting their angle to counteract wave forces. Despite this engineering achievement, there are humbling moments when technology reaches its limits. The stabilizers help certainly, acknowledges a ship's officer, but when you're facing the Drake shake, there's only so much technology can do. During a recent crossing, even with stabilizers fully deployed, plates slid from tables and passengers gripped handrails as the ship listed 30 degrees in massive seas, a stark reminder of nature's dominance. The bridge showcases perhaps the most impressive advances. Navigation systems that would have seemed magical to early explorers now guide ships through these hostile waters. Advanced radar systems detecting approaching ice and rogue waves. A satellite positioning providing precise location data during storms. A Doppler current profilers identifying powerful underwater streams to avoid. Captain de Vorsign's approach highlights the ongoing interplay between technology and human judgment. The ocean is stronger than any ship, he states unequivocally. We remain focused, alert, and sensitive to both our vessel and the weather. This philosophy acknowledges that despite technological advancements, human experience and decision-making remain irreplaceable. Emergency response protocols reveal another dimension of modern maritime technology. Specialized life rafts designed for frigid waters stand ready alongside survival suits capable of extending human endurance in near-freezing temperatures. Advanced communication systems ensure distress signals reach authorities even in remote sections of the passage. These safety measures acknowledge both technological advances and their limitations. The Drake's remoteness means rescue operations face significant delays, a reality that shapes emergency planning. Ship captains prepare for scenarios where mechanical failures leave vessels vulnerable to the passage's fury. Engine problems in these conditions are potentially catastrophic, explains a maritime safety officer. That's why redundant systems and rigorous maintenance schedules are essential. These precautions reflect lessons from historical disasters, including recent incidents demonstrating continuing risks. The 2022 tragedy aboard a Viking cruise ship provides a sobering reminder. Despite modern design and technology, a rogue wave smashed through windows, resulting in injuries and a passenger fatality. This incident echoes distantly with the 1819 sinking of the San Telmo and its 644 souls, illustrating how fundamental dangers persist across centuries of technological development. Dynamic positioning systems represent another innovation with particular value in the Drake. These computerized systems use GPS data alongside information from wind sensors and motion reference units to automatically maintain a vessel's position despite powerful currents and winds, providing capabilities unimaginable to previous generations. Yet for all these technological marvels, the most important decision often remains the simplest: whether to cross at all. Sometimes the best technology is patience, notes an experienced captain. Modern ships frequently wait in port for days when the Drake shows its full fury. This reality, that even our most sophisticated vessels must sometimes yield to nature, perhaps best illustrates the continuing challenge these waters present. The technologies developed to navigate the Drake Passage influence maritime operations worldwide. The passage serves as both challenge and laboratory, pushing human innovation forward while reminding us of its limits. What emerges is a nuanced picture of humanity's relationship with one of Earth's most formidable maritime environments, where remarkable tools minimize risks, yet the passage's unpredictability, power, and remoteness continue to command respect from even the most technologically equipped vessels. The paradox of Antarctic tourism reveals itself in the stark contrast between passengers lounging contentedly on sunlit decks versus those white-knuckled travelers gripping handrails for dear life as their vessel pitches violently through massive swells. This is the dual personality of the Drake Passage, a maritime Jekyll and Hyde that tourists willingly subject themselves to for the chance to set foot on Earth's most remote continent. What's most surprising about this treacherous stretch of water is that thousands of people now voluntarily pay premium prices to experience it. Antarctic tourism has transformed what was once considered a harrowing obstacle into a marketable adventure, with expedition companies promoting the crossing as an essential part of the authentic Antarctic experience rather than merely an unavoidable transit zone. The journey across the Drake Passage is frequently described as a transformative experience, explains Dr. Amanda Keller, tourism researcher at the Polar Institute. Many travelers view it as a fundamental component of their expedition, a physical and psychological journey that's both challenging and rewarding. The terminology itself has become part of Antarctic tourism lore. The Drake Lake refers to those fortunate and relatively rare occasions when calm conditions prevail, offering passengers a gentle introduction to Antarctic waters. In contrast, the more common Drake Shake describes the turbulent reality most tourists encounter, a baptism by fury that tests even the hardiest travelers. "I booked my Antarctic expedition expecting adventure," recounts Sarah Mitchell, a 42-year-old engineer from Boston. "But nothing prepared me for what it feels like when your entire ship suddenly drops 20 feet into a trough between waves. One moment I was eating breakfast, the next my plate was sliding across the table while I clung to anything bolted down." This unpredictability is precisely what expedition companies must manage. In the lounge of the MS Expedition, passengers receive their first briefing about crossing the Drake. The expedition leader stands before a packed room, her matter-of-fact tone neither minimizing nor sensationalizing what lies ahead. "Tomorrow we'll enter the Drake Passage," she announces. "I can't tell you whether we'll experience the lake or the shake. Sometimes it changes halfway through. What I can tell you is that we're prepared for either scenario. That preparation includes a methodical approach to passenger welfare. Medical staff distribute information packets detailing seasickness prevention strategies, emphasizing that prevention before symptoms appear is crucial. The ship's medical center becomes a hub of activity during particularly rough crossings, with staff administering anti-nausea injections when oral medications prove insufficient. The physical design of expedition vessels reflects concessions to the Drake's volatile nature. Newer ships feature innovative hull designs specifically engineered to minimize the pitch and roll that triggers seasickness. Strategic cabin placement becomes a consideration for savvy travelers, with rooms located amidships and on lower decks experiencing less dramatic motion than those at the bow or stern. Cabin selection significantly impacts your Drake Passage experience, advises veteran expedition leader Marcus Hendricks. Rooms in the center of the ship feel less movement. Having a window helps too. Being able to see the horizon stabilizes your inner ear's equilibrium. The psychological dimension of crossing the Drake extends beyond physical discomfort. Many passengers report a profound shift in perspective after witnessing nature's raw power firsthand. The experience creates an unusual social dynamic aboard ship, strangers united in a shared challenge that strips away pretenses and creates lasting bonds. This shared adversity transforms into a badge of honor. Passengers who endure particularly challenging crossings develop a sense of camaraderie that expedition staff actively cultivate. Many ships award playful certificates commemorating the Drake Shake experience, turning discomfort into achievement. The Drake Passage crossing serves as a powerful threshold experience, a liminal space between the familiar world and the alien landscape of Antarctica. This psychological transition prepares visitors for the otherworldly environment they'll encounter. Those who endure the crossing report feeling they've earned their Antarctic experience rather than merely purchased it. There's a reason we still cross by ship when flying is technically possible, explains anthropologist Dr. Martin Kiefer, who studies tourism experiences in extreme environments. The Drake Passage functions as what anthropologists call a rite of passage. It physically removes you from your comfort zone and deposits you in a fundamentally different mental state, primed to appreciate Antarctica's uniqueness. When conditions deteriorate beyond what tourists anticipated, expedition companies implement escalating response protocols. During severe crossings, furniture is secured, handrails appear in corridors, and public spaces become designated safe zones where passengers can gather under supervision. For expedition staff, the Drake Passage serves as a valuable assessment tool. Guides observe how passengers respond to discomfort and stress, identifying those who might require extra attention during challenging Antarctic landings. The crossing effectively separates those with genuine adaptability from those who merely believed themselves adventurous. The rising popularity of Antarctic tourism despite, or perhaps because of, the Drake Passage Challenge reveals something profound about human nature. In an era of increasing comfort and safety, many travelers actively seek experiences that test their resilience, that remind them of their relative insignificance against natural forces. What's fascinating is that our booking data shows passengers who experienced rougher crossings actually report higher overall satisfaction with their Antarctic journey, notes Ellen Schwartzman, marketing director for Polar Expeditions. The harder the journey, the sweeter the arrival. This phenomenon explains why alternative options that bypass the Drake Passage, such as flycruise programs that airlift passengers directly to Antarctic research stations, remain less popular despite their obvious convenience. For many, the Drake crossing is not an obstacle, but the beginning of their Antarctic story, the first chapter in a narrative of personal challenge and discovery. As climate patterns shift, the nature of the Drake crossing itself is evolving. The unpredictability that has always characterized the Drake Passage is increasing, making the traditional wisdom about best times to cross increasingly unreliable. For all the sophisticated technology aboard modern expedition vessels, crossing the Drake remains a humbling experience. Ships equipped with stabilizers and weather routing systems still find themselves at the mercy of conditions that can change drastically within hours. This reality creates a powerful metaphor for humanity's relationship with the natural world. Our technology provides a margin of safety, but never complete control. The Drake Passage thus becomes more than a physical journey. It emerges as a philosophical one. Passengers confronting their vulnerability in the face of massive oceanic forces often report a shift in their environmental consciousness. Witnessing firsthand the power of these waters cultivates a deeper appreciation for the delicate balance of Earth's systems and our place within them. As we return to the RRS Sir David Attenborough, we discover how the vessel ultimately navigated to safety, a testament to human ingenuity in the face of overwhelming natural forces. Projections indicate the Antarctic Circumpolar Current could slow by up to 20% by 2050 if greenhouse gas emissions remain high, a profound disruption to a system that absorbs 40% of our annual global carbon dioxide emissions. The Drake Passage stands as our planet's warning system, where nature's raw power reminds us of our limitations while offering crucial insights into Earth's changing climate. In its turbulent waters lies a message. Our actions today determine Earth's future, and our own